Hello everyone, welcome back. We are still discussing the organs of government, and this time we are looking at legislature as an organ or the second organ of government. Legislature is the organ of government that makes the law. All right? Legislature again is the organ of government that makes the law. That is the primary function of the legislature. Okay? And then we have the functions of the legislature. Just like we have functions of the executive, legislature too has its own functions. Number one is lawmaking. The primary function of the legislature is to make the law. All right? That is the primary function. And these laws are made in the parliaments. All right? Yes. Before the law becomes law, it is always a bill passed, subject to their own ratification. It depends on where the bill is coming from. If it is an executive bill coming from the president, it is subject to their own ratification. Even if it is their own bill, all right, that's private member bill, all right, it is also what? Subject to their own ratification, after which it is passed to the president for assent. Okay? Center of discussion. The legislature is a center of discussion for national issues. Whatever issue is going on in the country, anytime they meet at a joint session of both houses, if it is in a bicameral legislature, they discuss issue. Or if it is just a single sitting of individual houses, these issues that concern the nation or the country at large are discussed. Then investigation. National Assembly or the legislature serves as a chamber wherein matters affecting act of governance is actually investigated. If, for example, somebody is accused of actually embezzling public funds, it is left with members of the legislature to investigate that issue of financial fraud and all of that to find out the truth or the veracity in the accusation brought against the person. Then we talk about financial control. Issues that concern money, like budgets, everything about finances is always controlled by members of the legislature. Okay? For example, the president cannot just initiate bill that concerns budgets and then approve the bill by himself. It is not possible. It must be subject to ratification by the parliamentarians or the lawmakers, after which it is again sent back to him for his assent and all of that. Then you talk about amendments. One of the functions of the legislature is not just to make the law, but what? To amend. Whenever these laws are no longer favorable, it is expected of members of the parliament to subject the law to amendment or change. For example, 1999 Constitution has been amended so many times, all right, to suit the present needs of Nigerians. Okay, so that's that for the functions of the legislature. In our next class, we shall look at the types of legislature. Hello everyone, welcome back again. Yes, we are still looking at legislature, all right, and this time we are looking at the types of legislature that we have. There are basically two types of legislature. We have the unicameral legislature and the bicameral legislature, all right. But we are going to be looking at the unicameral legislature first of all. But let me quickly shed light on both for us to know what the two talk about. Unicameral legislature simply means one chamber legislature. That means only one body legislature. They are not up to two or more. For example, in each of the 36 states that we have in Nigeria, we practice unicameralism. Like Edo State has Edo State House of Assembly. Kwara State has Kwara State House of Assembly. Ondo State has Ondo State House of Assembly. So it means we practice unicameralism in each state. But bicameralism simply means two-chamber legislature. Like the whole Nigeria, for example, operates bicameral legislature. Okay? Yes, the whole Nigeria operates bicameral legislature. But now we are looking at just a single-chamber legislature. And we have here on the board the advantages and the disadvantages of the unicameral legislature. That's the merit and the demerit. Don't forget, another name for merit is advantage. All right? Or you call it, argument in favor. all right? Then the demerit is what? Shortcomings or argument against or limitations. So we have merits. Now, it is less expensive. The reason why unicameral legislature is advantageous is that it is not that expensive, all right? Because if you compare unicameralism to bicameralism, the numbers that we have, all right, they are very few. Unlike when you have other chambers to pay members there, all right, then it will make it expensive. But this one, now you only have one house and the members they are not there that many. Then it reduces unhealthy rivalry, all right. If you have two chambers, for example, there will be competition among the two houses about the one that is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, which creates unnecessary unhealthy rivalry, okay? But this one, there is no room for such. Since it's only one chamber, who are they competing with? Nobody. Speedy passage of bills. Yes, if you have a single house, it is easier to pass bills because if it passes through the lower chamber, there is no other chamber to go through again, after which it is assented to by the president. So it leads to speedy passage of bills. There is no room for dumping ground. If it is a bicameral legislature, the Senate has served as a dumping ground for retired old politicians. Yes, people who are already been governors before, they see Senate as a dumping ground. Let me just go there and sit. All right, that's what they do. But because you have a single chamber under the unicameral legislature, there is no place for them to, dump themselves when they are retired as old politicians. Okay. Then uniformity, all right, there is uniformity in what is discussed because it's a single house. There is no contradiction as to this is coming from the lower house and the upper house sees it from a different perspective. There is uniformity in their discussions and the way they opine on issues. Then we talk about the disadvantages or the shortcomings of the unicameral legislation. Number one, hasty and unsatisfactory bills. All right, some of the bills, they pass them in a hasty way. They are in a hurry to pass these bills. Had it been it is a bicameral legislature, they would have gone through the lower house and then go through the upper house again, for proper scrutiny. All right, but because it's a single house, there is no room for that, and that's one of the disadvantages of a unicameral legislature. All right, then you talk about the executive control. All right. The executive, because it's just one house, it is very easy for the chief executive, the president, to maneuver, the single house. Unlike when you have two houses, if you can maneuver one, the other one may not accept. Then absence of experienced men. It is always said that in bicameral legislature, the upper house have more experienced men. All right, like the House of Senate now, they are much more experienced than those in the lower house. But that is absent in the unicameral case. All right. Then you talk about the tutorial head of state. Single, legislative body, that's unicameralism, can produce a head of state that is dictatorial with his dealings, all right? Because he can easily buy over the single house to himself. But in a bicameral legislature, if you have bought one house, you may not be able to buy the other members of the upper house. The lack of checks and balances. It's only when you have two houses that one house can check the activities of the other. But if you have only a single house, then they can pass any bill they like without proper check from the other organ, house that is supposed to have existed. Then you have no adequate representation. Another disadvantage of unicameral legislature is that people are not adequately represented in the country. For example, in Nigeria, where we practice bicameralism, people are adequately represented. In the House of Reps, you have 360 members across the states of Nigeria representing their various constituencies. Then in the Senate too, you have 3 persons from each state and 1 representing Abuja. That's 109. So in totality, 469 members in the National Assembly in Nigeria. So that means that there is adequate representation in a bicameral legislature. Okay? And that's that. In our next class, we shall look at bicameral legislature. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is still a real class and we are still looking at legislature, and this time it is bicameral legislature because in our previous class we had discussed unicameralism as a single chamber legislature. But this time we are looking at bicameral legislature, which is two-chamber legislature. All right. Nigeria practices bicameralism. United States of America practices bicameralism. United Kingdom, Britain practices bicameralism. Now, here is how it goes. In Nigeria, the lower house is called the House of Representatives, what they call the Green Chamber. All right. And the House of Representatives in Nigeria, there are 360 members. Then the upper house in Nigeria is called the House of Senate. And the House of Senate is made up of 109 members, 3 senators from each state and 1 representing Abuja. Now, the two houses together in Nigeria, both the House of Reps and House of Senate, are referred to as the National Assembly. So altogether in the National Assembly, we have 469 members. That's that. Then in UK, we have bicameral legislature too. We have the upper house referred to as the House of Lords, which is hereditary. That's where the monarch is, King Charles III. And then we have the lower house, which is an elective position, referred to as House of Commons. Both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, they are referred to as the British Parliament. All right? So that's that. Then in America, we also practice bicameral legislature. We have the upper house called the House of Senate, and the lower house referred to as the House of Representatives. But both houses are referred to as the U.S. Congress. That's why you have what they call congressional bill. That means bill passed by both houses. All right? Yes. Now, we have both advantages and disadvantages of the bicameral legislature. Now, what are the merits or advantages of bicameral legislature? Number one, thoroughness. The two houses are very thorough in the passage of bills, because the same process it passes in the lower house is the same process it will undergo in the upper house. So it creates room for thoroughness and not a hasty legislation. So there is check and balances. Wherever the lower house passes, there is room for the upper house to serve as a check on that, so it doesn't give room to, a bill that is not supported by all and sundry. Sound and experienced minds is often created in the case of bicameral legislature, because in the upper house, we have men that are more experienced. Like Nigeria, we have retired governors that find themselves there at the upper house. People like Adams Oshiomhole, Godswill Akpabio, all of them, they were once governors of their states. So they are more experienced than those in the lower house. Then we have adequate representation. Just imagine the House of Senate, for example. How many states do we have in Nigeria? 36. There must be 3 senators from each state. And that's what we call adequate representation. For example, in Edo State, Edo South, Edo North, Edo Central. So do we have these 3 senators representing each state across the federation. That's adequate representation from each constituency. Then we have division of labor. All right? Yes. Whatever the upper house is unable to do, they can delegate those functions to the lower house to carry out those functions. And by so doing, there is division of labor among the 2 houses. And that's one of the crucial advantages of the bicameral legislature. Proper scrutiny. Now, each bill that emanates from the lower house or the upper house is subject to scrutiny, because it must first pass through the lower house, then it passes through the upper house. So, to avoid, hasty legislation, to avoid, passing bills that are quite obnoxious, all right, it is very important that they subject these bills to scrutiny. That's both houses. More democratic. It is more democratic. Bicameral legislature is more democratic. You know why? Because there is check and balances. All right. There is power to check on the activities of the other. All right. And then we talk about the disadvantages of the bicameral legislature. Number one, it is too expensive. Like in Nigeria, how many members do we have in the National Assembly of joint, House of Reps and House of Senate? 469. For you to pay them is not, a child's play at all. Just imagine if you have only lower house where we have 360 members, so you can pay less. So to operate a bicameral legislature is very expensive. Then we have unhealthy rivalry. there could be bills, passed by the lower house that they see that it's okay. When it gets to the upper chamber, it is strike the bill out. So you can see unnecessary rivalry that goes on between the two houses, because the upper house, they always see themselves as more superior, all right, than the lower house. Then dumping grounds. Now, in a situation where you have bicameral legislature, the upper house always serve as a dumping ground for retired politicians. Like I made reference to it earlier, former governors, all of them are in the House of Senate. So it serves as a dumping ground for them. Immediately they finish their tenure as governor, the next agenda is for them to contest for the position of Senate. They just go there and sit without doing anything. That's what they do there. So that's what serves as a disadvantage to the bicameral legislature. They have unnecessary delay. Just imagine a bill that comes through the lower house, all right, undergoes the same process in the upper house, thereby causing delay in the passage of bills, all right. So that's one of the disadvantages of the bicameral legislature. And duplication of functions. There is virtually nothing they are doing in the upper house. It is the same thing they do in the lower house that they do in the upper house. It's the same stage: first reading, second reading, third reading, committee stage, all right, then report stage, then we have presidential assent. When it goes through this process in the lower house, it is the same process it goes through in the upper house. So what's the need of creating two chambers? So it means there is just nothing for them to achieve. Is duplication of functions, all right. So that's that for disadvantages of bicameral legislature, all right. In our next class, we shall look at the third organ of government, which is the judiciary.